I'm Christy Bishop, and welcome to What Nobody Tells Us. Oh my gosh, you guys, I cannot wait to share this episode with you. I just finished recording this episode with an incredible human, wife and mom and leader of a nonprofit. Her name is Molly Reeser. She lives in Michigan, born and raised, and she is the founder of an organization, a nonprofit organization called Camp Casey, which essentially brings equine therapy to children who are incredibly ill. What does that mean? She brings horses to sick kids. She helps the families and the siblings and the patients, the child patients of incredibly difficult, debilitating, potentially terminal illness like cancer, leukemia, and other terminal illnesses, and to give them a sense of control and hope and love and compassion, and to bring attention to these children and to give them some normalcy and some support and some love. And most importantly, to let them feel the love of an animal, in particular horse, which she talks all about how important horses are in their role in therapy with children, not just children, but humans in general, and why they're so extraordinary. I cannot wait for you to hear about Camp Casey. I can't wait for you to hear the serendipitous stories that she talks about around how it started and how the energy just keeps flowing through this organization after she started it in college. And it's now 19 years later. All right, that's enough. You need to hear from Molly. You don't need to hear from me. So please enjoy this episode of What Nobody Tells Us, because you're going to learn a lot. You might cry. You're going to laugh. Molly is just so charismatic, and her energy is contagious, as is her laughter. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you for the next episode. Hi, Molly. I'm so excited to have you. Welcome to What Nobody Tells Us.
Howdy. Happy to be here.
Howdy. I love it. All right, let's just jump in. Let's do what
it.
did you want to do when you were growing up? Were you always super into horses?
I always loved horses, of course, because I think that every child loves horses, and if you don't,
Yes.
I don't. Maybe you haven't met a horse yet, but I always loved horses. I always thought they were so beautiful and so majestic, and just like every little girl loves horses. But I never really thought that I would pursue a career working with horses. I definitely never knew that I would be working in the nonprofit sector. I didn't really even know what that was. When I was younger, I, of course, had like these grandiose thoughts that I was going to move to a big city and be a writer, just like Carrie Bradshaw, and live in this gorgeous high-rise apartment and write like a magazine column, just very Sex in the City sort of situation. But my life definitely did not pan out that way at all. It's interesting because if you talk to like a real horse person who actually has dedicated his or her life to horses and, you know, competes and has beautiful, expensive horses, they would laugh if they hear me call myself a horsewoman, because I'm very much like I don't know, I'm like a cowgirl imposter in many ways. But I got into my line of work, which horses are a critical part of, when I met a little girl that inspired me tremendously, more than anybody has ever inspired me in my whole life. And she's definitely took my life and just rerouted it and put it in a direction that I never thought that I would be on. And that was when I actually graduated high school. I started working at a horse camp. I started teaching horseback riding lessons because, again, I was always a horse enthused person, but never just for fun and because I loved them, thought they were just such calming, wonderful animals. I worked at a horse camp, and it was there that I learned how to teach riding lessons and learned how to organize, and really got a lot of the responsibility, handed to me of maintaining a farm. And then from there, I went over to Michigan State University, and I started pursuing a degree in journalism, which I do remember, though, like thinking like, I don't belong here because everybody else is so passionate about current events and politics and news and journalism. And I just remember thinking like, well, I like to write. And, it seems like the fewest math courses are required for this degree. But when I went to Michigan State, I needed a part-time job, and I answered an ad in the state news that was looking for somebody to come muck horse stalls and teach riding lessons at a nearby farm. And having the experience that I had working at a horse camp. And I thought, well, I am extremely qualified for this. I'll go ahead and work on this horse farm. But it was there that I ended up meeting a little girl named Casey. So I was 18 or 19 at the time. And this little Spitfire girl who was only 11 years old at the time when I met her came to the barn, and she loved horses. She reminded me a lot of myself because she was not only into horses, but just into animals. She just loved animals in general. And she was really, sarcastic and just a spitfire. I mean, everyone knew when Casey was there because she made it very known that she was there. She was loud, she was funny, she was confident. Um, but she was also going through treatment for cancer. And that was evident because she didn't have her hair and her face had bloated a bit from the treatment that she was going through. And she would be gone for several days, sometimes weeks at a time, because of different surgeries that she had to endure, or also, her where she was in her therapy, her chemo, she was unable to be around horses. So um, that, of course, struck a chord with me, like it would anybody, because seeing a little girl who's sick and somebody so full of life and who cares so deeply about the lives of animals fighting for her own was just gut wrenching. And we became buddies right away. She liked me because I was sort of a softie about these little birds that would fall from the rafters at the barn. She'd always bring them to me, and I would take them home to my apartment, and I really tried to like nurse them back to life. I don't think a single bird made it out of like the 12 or 13 that she would bring to me. But I had like a little like birdie graveyard in my apartment complex. But
Oh my
I
God.
never,
Did you ever tell her that?
no,
Did
I
you
always
ever let her know? Okay, good.
away is doing great, but she was just such a precious little girl. Of course, cared so much about saving the lives of these little birds, and she
Mhm.
just loved animals so much. I could go on about Casey, but she ended up passing away about a year and a half after I got to know her. So we didn't really know each other very long.
Mhm.
But it was like an intense friendship, and I felt like she was just such a cool, like special little girl. And it was devastating when she passed away. Of course, I mean, it was
Of
this
course.
very vibrant life just taken much too soon. And myself and some others that I worked with on the farm who also were teaching riding lessons and a critical part of the barn, um, we all wanted to get together and do something to honor Casey's life. And we thought, I
Mhm.
remember all of us sitting around this table in the kitchen at the barn, and we were all saying, oh, let's, we need to honor her life in some way. Let's plant a tree and get a little plaque that honors her, or have a park bench dedicated to her, and we'll put it by the pasture. And there were all these different ideas that were thrown out. And I just remember thinking, like, that is not how Casey would want to be represented. Like, trees are beautiful. I'm sure she would have loved, us contributing to the earth, but Casey was more than a tree. She just had such like this personality to her. And so a park bench, I didn't feel appropriately represented her life.
Yeah.
Instead, my idea was that we should, instead of buying something stationary, we should do something, and we should bring horses into the lives of other kids who were
Mhm.
also going through cancer treatment. And
Oh.
it was never meant to be more than a 1 day thing, though. I mean, it was going to be let's gather a bunch of children on this farm on this single
Mhm.
day at this single time, and we will give them an experience that Casey had.
Mhm.
And
And do you mean in particular like children going through illness or
yeah,
going through cancer
so the
treatment?
idea that I had, that I kind of like bulldozed everybody, which I tend to do. I participated in the brainstorm session, but I sort of in the back of my head knew, like, okay, well, she cares too much about school. She's not going to like actually go buy the park bench, or she's very into her sorority or whatever she has going on. And so she's not. So I sort of knew that everyone was a lot of talk, and that I could just
Yeah.
muscle my way and be like, okay, these are great ideas, but I'm actually going to do what I want
Yeah.
to do. So I
Yeah.
approached the owners of the barn, and I don't even know that I asked their permission. I just basically said, like, hey, on Saturday, June 19th, is it okay if we stop the lesson program? Because that was one of the ways that the barn made money, was to offer
Mhm.
horseback riding lessons. And I thought, hey, if we can just for 1 day, for a few hours, have no lessons happening, and if you can let me take over this facility, I will go to the local hospital where Casey received treatment. It was just
Mhm.
out of East Lansing, and I'll gather some children, and they'll be able to come to the barn. And I had this whole setup that we would rotate them from different stations and have riding and crafts, and we'd make horse cookies, and we would have basically a camp day, and I
Yeah.
wanted to call it Camp Casey. So of course they allowed me to do that. I remember I took with a credit card that my parents um,
Hmm.
give me for, for emergencies when you go to college. And I put $200 on that of pizza and arts and craft
Hmm.
supplies and some odds and ends. And I ended up having, I put up flyers at the local hospital, and I talked to some of the nurses on the pediatric oncology floor,
Hmm.
which by the way is like not how we recruit at all now, but
Back in the day, you just needed to get
yeah,
it done.
like flyers. That's how we recruit people. So,
Yeah.
and we ended up having such a successful day. We had 80 guests come out. We had 20 children who were going through treatment. Their brothers and
Hmm.
sisters were able to come. And that was important to me as well. I wanted to make sure that this was an event that was open to the whole family, because I
Hmm.
saw the effects that cancer and what Casey was going through had on her brother and on her mom and on her dad, and how they would come to the barn sometimes and enjoy the respite
Yes.
they could get out of just kind of getting out of the four walls that they had to stare at when they were, going through the hard times that they were going through. So um,
Yes.
I opened this up for it to be a family event, and we had 80 guests come out, and it was the most beautiful day. I remember it was like, Michigan can get kind of humid or rainy, and it was just perfect. It was like the birds were chirping and the sky was blue and everything just worked out. And the day just went by so quickly, but also just so efficiently. And everybody was just feeling so good. And at the end of this Camp KC day, which was again supposed to be a one
Hmm.
time event, I remember thinking, wow, we did it. We appropriately honored Casey's life how we should have. And
Hmm.
I felt like we really did make a difference. And now I could go on and
Hmm.
become this famous writer. And it was like, okay, well, that chapter of my life was closed. I really truly
Right.
felt I had done what I felt in my heart I needed to do to honor Casey.
Right.
But like I really feel as though Camp Casey is a guided organization, and I think she's one of the many angels at this point that really looks over
Hmm.
us. But I think that this organization really took on. I feel like that was the day I birthed the baby, and then the baby started growing from there,
Yes.
and it took on a life of its own. Because
Yes.
about a week later, I received a letter from a little boy who was in attendance at the Camp Casey event, and it said, and he was 5, and he was going through treatment for brain cancer as well. Casey, by
Hmm.
the way, had 2 types of cancer. She had bone cancer and brain cancer. It
Oh
didn't
my gosh.
cancer
Oh.
metastasized. She actually had um, 2 types of cancer. But this little boy, David, um, was also going through treatment for brain cancer, and he was just a little baby. He was only 5, and he was so cute. And he wrote us a letter. It was a handwritten letter, and it said, "Thank you for the best day of my life." And I was like,
Oh.
well, if this was the best day of this little 5-year-old's life, and
Hmm.
it was so easy to pull off, and like, the skies were blue and the birds were chirping, it's of course going to happen every time we do this.
Of
So
course. Of
I went
course.
to the owners of the farm and I said, hey, I know I said this was a one-time thing, but what if we did this once a month?
Hmm.
And again, I don't even know that I asked permission. I probably was like, on the third Saturday of every month, I'm going to be doing this. And um,
I love you. It's so great. Just do it.
yeah, and we did it. And it, I mean, I didn't have a pot to piss in. Again, everything was like begged, borrowed, or stolen. I mean, it was like at first it was on my parents' credit card, and then I would go around, and it was myself and my boyfriend at the time, and my best friend, and a few of our friends that were obviously very touched by the first day that we were a part of this and wanted to
Right.
happen again. And we would go to the local sandwich shops and local pizza shops and
Yes.
Joanne Fabrics and the different places and ask if we could get goods donated. And it was remarkable how generous the community was. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone wanted to help and everyone wanted to be a part of it. And that was like, in addition to it being amazing to see the fruits of this labor and see these children enjoy themselves and see this
Mhm.
happen, it was equally as fun to like go on these scavenger hunts and get all of these people to be a part of this. And it was just like, I mean, I was like high from it. It was amazing. I loved it. Yeah, it felt so good. And I just was like,
Yeah.
you know what? This is something that I wanted to keep going. So I ran it monthly for 3 years. And at that time though, I after the third year of running this program, I graduated college, and it
Mhm.
was like, uh-oh, like I I need to get a job. I need to do
Yeah.
something. I was like definitely getting cut off from any that credit card was getting ripped up, that was worse during college. So I remember like having just that total like who moved my cheese moment, and I really stressed out. I mean, it was like a very it was the first time in my life I had experienced panic attacks. It was awful. I was so
Ugh.
scared. I didn't know what I wanted. I knew I wasn't passionate about journalism. I had a degree,
Yeah.
but it was like the thought of getting a job at a newspaper or a TV station, or it was like that was just not what I wanted to do. So then I
And
thought, okay, well,
sitting
maybe
in a cubicle, writing all day, getting approvals by your editors. No.
I didn't have the passion for it. I just knew that
Yeah.
that was not something that I would ever be good at or make money at doing, because my heart wasn't in it. And it's hard when you graduate college. It's like, okay, now go get a job, go get a 401k, and go get health benefits. And it's like, you need
Mhm.
to do these things to live. But I just didn't really have that desire much to take that conventional route. And instead, I decided to do the most terrifying thing I've ever done. And I sat my parents down. I took them out to this like chain restaurant and told them that I was so appreciative of their support all throughout college, but that I was going to be taking a little time, and instead of going to law school, which is what they really wanted me to do, or go get a conventional job where, they didn't have to worry about me, I said, I'm going to just take the year and I will waitress for 1 year. And I'm going to see if I can make
Mhm.
Camp Casey an actual nonprofit organization that I could eventually be
Mhm.
paid from. And now that it's been 19 years that I've run this organization, and I've been employed for a long time by Camp Casey and employ a staff, and we are a very strong, lean but strong organization. My parents would never admit that they had this reaction because they're very proud of its work and
Of
it's
course.
what it's done for so many kids and families. But they were like really not happy with me. I mean, it was like, I think my mom like lost her appetite and was just like, "You're kidding me! Like, no, like you need to get a job. Like
Yeah.
this is
Well, let me stop you there just for a second. So you're in this pivotal moment, you're having panic attacks, you're taking your parents out to dinner, and they're like, absolutely not. This is crazy. Go to law school and
right,
incur more debt, by the way, because we're not paying for that.
uh, right,
Um, when you think about the 3 years prior, which it's like, I didn't realize that you ran it for 3 years, once a month while in college. First of all,
yeah."
that's extraordinary, like incredible.
Well,
And
I
to be,
wasn't such a scholar. I mean, I think I held like a 2.8 GPA. Like, I don't know what law school my
doesn't
mom
matter.
thought I was going to be getting into, but I was not very like, like Joe's like backyard law school or
you,
something.
you were you were not, you're the imposter lawyer, imposter cowgirl, all of it. But
It was
like when
not going to happen. I don't think anyone would have accepted me into their school, rightfully
Well,
so.
good,
But
because it
yeah.
wasn't your path anyway. But you think about, so if you can think about those 3 years prior when you're in this pivotal moment,
Mhm.
and what was it about the experience with Camp Casey? And like, because these are not like, I mean, they're fun events, but obviously they're full of children facing very, very serious illness, terminal illness, their families who are grieving, stressed
Yeah.
out, siblings who are feeling, isolated, left out, all of these things. What what was it about the Camp Casey events that just
Mhm.
made you feel like this is what I want to do?
Well, it's the same thing that I still feel when we are working with the children and the families. We are not seeing them during their really dark times. We're not, and that is a question that I get all the time from friends of mine. Goes, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that work. I would just be crying the entire time. I don't know how you do it. And I would say that to a nurse. I would say that to a doctor. I would say that to the phlebotomist that has to come and draw their blood. I mean,
Yeah,
that to me, that's the hard stuff. We are doing the
yeah,
fun stuff. We are like, woo, it's a horse, it's crafts, it's pizza, it's fun. I mean, there is no part of the programming aspect of Camp Casey where you are sad or feeling down. I
mhm,
mean, of course, the hard part comes months later when you learn that that child has passed, or leading up to it when you're on the phone with the mom who does not have anybody to talk to and she knows that you might understand. I mean, that stuff is definitely
yeah,
difficult and emotional, and it can be very it can be hard. I mean, it is hard, of course. That's what we are working with, but the benefits that I get from being a part of what we do. And that was from day one of
Yeah.
seeing these children light up, seeing their families light up because they're seeing their child in a space of normalcy and not as a cancer patient now. They're seeing their child as just a young animal lover. I mean, I can't explain how gratifying that is. In fact, I don't think that anybody gets more out of our organization than me and my team and the volunteers. It's definitely not something that is there's nothing altruistic about this because we are getting completely filled by seeing this work being rendered.
Yes. What ultimately did you decide was Camp Casey's mission?
Well, I mean, I could give you our verbatim mission, which is to
No, but no, in your heart, what does Camp Casey do?
what I would like to do is provide access to horses to children who are going through real hardships and
Mhm.
families and communities and um, bringing people together during times of real sadness and despair.
Mhm.
So that's truly what Camp Casey does, and that's what it's done from the very start. But it ended up just really turning into its own like just I mean I always say I'm like I feel like we're just riding this energy, and it's like we
Yeah.
are on this like freight train that is just going to where it wants to go, and I'm always catching up to it, and
Yes.
it's a beautiful thing and it's exciting, and it really is truly running a business. I mean, that is something, if I'm going to talk about some things that people might not know about nonprofit work, it's not all rainbows and sunshine and fun and
Mhm.
programming. The programming is one aspect up to it, but there's also a large administrative part of it where we are making sure that our insurance is buttoned up and making sure that our funding is secured and making sure that the waivers are signed and that um,
Mhm.
the helmets are ASTM certified and up to date and all of those kinds of things that aren't always the fun part. But there was something so fulfilling about even that end of things for me. I liked the hunt of getting the in-kind donations and getting
Mhm.
making sure that all of our documents were filed appropriately. There was something that felt so good about this being like a true business. And
Yeah.
in the 1 year that I was waitressing, which by the way turned into 6 years of waitressing, and I taught fitness for a little bit. And I mean, there was no Uber at the time, but I would have been an Uber driver, I'm sure. I mean, I just hustled. I spent most of my 20s, working like really long hours
Mhm.
and not making much money at all, but being so fulfilled because I had the time and the ability to really work on my dream when I
Mhm.
wasn't waitressing, when I was between the
Yeah.
shifts or between the odd jobs that I had to take on. And in time, by pulling out every resource I possibly could and surrounding myself with people who just knew a whole lot more than I did and could offer more than I could, and asking lots of favors from folks and trying to be as transparent about where we were as an organization and what our hopes and dreams were.
Mhm.
Slowly but surely, it just started snowballing and growing. And now, 19 years later, to the day of the first ever Camp Casey,
Mhm.
we are, we're a full nonprofit organization. We provide 4 different programs to over 1,600 people a year. We have a
Gosh.
5-person full-time staff. We have over 500 volunteers that are very active with us. We've been featured on the Today Show. We get a lot of different fun accolades, which are always exciting. Like this, I'm able to
Yeah.
tell my story, but
Mhm.
it hasn't been without its doubts and hardships and my own mother doubting me. This could
Yeah.
be something, so
Yeah.
some of those things it was very hard along the way, and it still is hard emotionally, physically, mentally, all of it. But
Yeah.
I do believe this is like my personal life's mission because I see such good that's coming out of this, not only for the families and the constituents that we're serving, but also the volunteers who get to feel that power of being a part of this, and the
Yeah.
businesses who are sponsoring this and who get to see like, whoa, I made that happen by putting my business
Yes.
name, behind this. So
You
it's a lot of like what I have always loved is like when like 1 and 1 can equal 3. Like I love a deal, I
Yeah.
love
Yes. Who doesn't?
right.
Yes.
I like really love a deal,
Yeah.
and I love being able to like take you and this person should know each other. And I like connecting dots and I like feel like
Yes.
one of my other life goals is to like be at a wedding and have them like cling the glass and like thank me for introducing them, you know? So they got married. Like, not
Yeah.
because I care about their marriage, but because I want to be like, I made that happen, you know? So,
You're a hustler, baby. I love it.
and I think that that is another benefit that I receive from Camp Casey is that I get to see all of these moving parts all come together to create something that just is so beautiful that keeps
Mhm.
growing and growing.
So, okay, you mentioned earlier that you really believe Camp Casey is a guided
Mhm.
organization, like spiritually guided. When we chatted initially before
Uh-huh.
taping this, you shared some truly incredible serendipitous moments.
Yeah. I swear I wouldn't believe some of this stuff if it didn't happen to me. I wouldn't believe if my best friend was telling me that this happened to her, I'd be like, bullshit, you know, like no.
Yes. Yeah, you're a liar.
Um, but it does. It happens and it happens all the time. And it's just the weirdest thing. But one of my favorite of the many serendipitous experiences that I've had over the years was really what started our Horsey House Call program. And the Horsey House Call program is one of the 4 programs that we operate. All of our programs are free to the families that we serve. They're expensive for us, but they're free for the families. And all of them involve horses and are a lot of fun. But the Horsey House Call program is probably the most sought after. It's the most unique. It's what kept us going during the lockdown of the pandemic because we were one of the only nonprofit organizations that was still able to operate in person during those times, which for a lot of our families, you have to understand the nature of what we do. The children we serve, some of them didn't live to see the end of the lockdown.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was really important to the social workers who were contacting us that our organization existed because the Horsey House Call program would allow it to be able to serve some of these kids whose Make-A-Wish trips got canceled or wouldn't live to see, a rescheduled event. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. The Horsey House Call program is where we bring a full-sized horse to the
Mhm.
homes of children who are going through treatment. And we've
Mhm.
since opened our parameters. We serve cancer, sickle cell disease, and then all life-threatening illnesses now. And that is
Mhm.
because of the demand that we've had for Horsey House Calls.
Mhm.
We knock on the door and we bring a horse to the doorstep. The children are surprised, which is so much fun. We're like the publisher's clearinghouse, but with a horse, which is like super duper. The parents, of course, know we're coming, but the kids are completely surprised. And we stay for an afternoon and we provide this really awesome day. Well, it all started though, not because anybody thought of this idea, but because we were at this point in Camp Casey's life, which I want to say it was like 2005 or so, 2004, 2005. Maybe it was a little bit later than that, 2005 or 2006, doesn't matter. A long time ago, feels like a world ago. But we
Mhm.
were at one of the one-day events where we would gather lots of kids at the same time at the same place. And we were running this program again for about 3 years. I ran that program, and it was not as like I said, that first ever Camp Casey event we had was spectacular, and it was so unique in the way that everything just worked out. Like there was no rain. There were 80 participants. It was like every kid showed up who was supposed to come. Well,
Mhm.
that is not something that it was very typical of these one day events as we continue to run them,
Mhm.
mostly because not every child who's in that area that we are serving, we were moving around from barn to barn at this time.
Mhm.
Not all of the kids were on the same treatment schedule. So
Of course.
we would find that we would plan the day for 20 children and only 9 would show up. And it wasn't
Mhm.
because the other 11 didn't want to have a day of riding and fun and crafts
Yeah.
and, good time. It was because the other 11 kids would have woken up that day with low platelets and not feeling
Yes.
well because of their treatment was too close to the scheduled event, or
Mhm.
maybe the child was experiencing some sort of um, you know, uh, effect from their treatment. And,
Yeah.
the families that we serve, they're not living lives that maybe you or I am living where things are,
Like I live that life. I know that life. Yes.
you get it, but a lot of people don't really understand that
Yeah.
there's a whole treatment schedule that determines
Yes.
life, it determines what you can be around,
Absolutely.
what you can't be around. So we had continuously run into these problems where we would plan this day. We would have the barns donating their horses and we would have volunteers come out and the pizzas donated. But not all of the children would be able to enjoy the day. And then we had 11
Yeah.
kids who weren't there that day. And now what are we going to do for those 11 kids? And it was a
Right.
continued problem. At one of the days that we hosted, this little girl came. Her name is Kelly. And I should preface this by saying Kelly is now like 21 or so, and she's doing great. But she and her sister ended up coming, and she was little. She was like 4 or 5 years old at the time. And she was very sick. She had a cancer called rhabdomyosarcoma, which is a malignant, fast growing tumor of soft tissue. So she had hers behind her eye. And she was such a little thing. And she came and she was so excited. I remember her exactly. It's so funny because this was such a long time ago, but I remember what she was wearing. She was like in full cowgirl garb, you know, like she had fringes on and cowgirl boots, and she was just ready, a little bald head, but like, she was so adorable. And she and her older sister, Lindsay, who was 7 at the time, both came to enjoy the day. And I remember thinking, whoa, because we look at their paperwork, we get medical consent forms. And I remember thinking, she is cutting it very close, to where probably shouldn't be participating on this day. But at this point, you know, families the mom and dad are there. So we're not, it's at their discretion at this point.
And also the parents want to give her that day. They want to give her that day. Like, okay, we'll take the risk. We just need to give her this.
They needed it for themselves. Everybody just needed this. And about an hour into the day, Kelly got a nosebleed. She was on the horse. They just mounted her on the horse. Because again, we were like taking kids from different stations. So arts and crafts and all these things. And she had just gotten on the horse, and she has a nosebleed. And for a child who is perfectly healthy, not going through something like this, you know, you say like, okay, well, they must have picked their nose too hard, pinch your nostrils together, you're fine. Well, in Kelly's case, because of where she was in her treatment, a nosebleed for her would have meant that she could have bled to death because her blood was not clotting. She had low platelets. So the nurse that we had there, who was a volunteer, immediately had her get off of the horse and sent her to the local hospital where she had to endure a blood transfusion. It was a terrible day for her family. Again, you know, cancer once again is disrupting this day of normalcy. Yes. And I felt just awful about it. It was the only time that had ever happened. And it was just, it like went right through my heart. I couldn't even enjoy like that day with the other kids, because I remember just thinking like, it would have been better if she didn't come at all versus her, and then ripping her off this horse to go to the hospital. But I also remember thinking that how quickly she and her sister responded. They knew this was their life. Like, I have 2 little boys, and if I tell them they have to like stop their video games like 5 minutes before they think they should stop, it's like they're bitching, you know. She and her sister were on these horses, like about to have so much fun. They got immediately off that horse and they knew what to do. They knew that they had to take this seriously. And it was just, that in itself was just heartbreaking, you know? So I like wanted her to throw a fit, you know, but she didn't. She knew that her life was on the line here. So at 5, just a little baby, like really understanding some very terrible, complicated concepts. Yeah. So I had that heavy on my heart for a while, and I kept in touch with the mom, obviously to follow up to see how she was doing, but then also to say like, we need to make this right. And I said, I promise you, I'm going to do something for her. So special. We're going to figure it out. I don't have anything figured out right this minute, but we're going to figure it out. Well, I had an idea. My girlfriend, Ashley, had a truck and a trailer for hauling horses. And my other friend, Madison, had a really gentle, docile horse named Sonora. I remember I like putting pieces together. So I called my friend Ashley. I said, hey, on this day at this time, will you drive your truck and trailer with Madison's horse? Madison was like, of course, you can take Sonora. So the 3 of us jump in Ashley's truck and trailer, and we end up going to, essentially, we went to her house. Well, I organized it with the mom. But we went to Kelly and Lindsay's house, and we knock on the door. We bring the horse right to the doorstep. And the girls answer the door, and they just start screaming. They were like so excited. We're in like suburbia. We are in the suburbs of Detroit. It's like there would not be a horse in this neighborhood ever, you know? And they're screaming, and they're so excited. And thank goodness, like Sonora was like the most like sweet angel of a horse, because she's just standing there like, all right, well, I guess I'm at this person's house, you know?
I'm not freaked out. I'm fine.
We have a really fun day planned for you. And we set up tables where we had crafts, and we ordered pizza. So we did essentially everything that they would have done, and everything they missed out on that day, we were doing it in their backyard. And it was so much fun. The girls were just, I mean, they did not stop smiling. Both of them just wanted just to keep taking turns on this horse. It was just the 2 of them and their parents, of course, and the 3 of us.
Yes.
And I was like somewhere, I remember I was walking with Kelly and we were like between like the swing set and the sidewalk basically. And this gentleman drives by real slow and he rolls down the window and he's like, what's going on here? You know, because, and
Mhm.
that I will tell you is a pretty common response that we get in neighborhoods where
Sure.
everyone comes out of the woodwork and wants to stop and see what's going on. And so he stopped and he said, what is this? Like, and I said, well, we're Camp Casey and this is a horsey house call. And, and
Was
he
that
said,
the first time you'd ever said that in your life?
yes. And it was so weird though, because like all of this was coming together. It really was. It
Mhm.
was like, as it's happening, I'm going, this is what we should be doing. Why are we trying to gather 20 kids who are immunocompromised on different treatment schedules, whose parents have enough places to schlep them, honestly? Why aren't we tailoring the day to the child instead of having the child come to us? You know, I mean, that it just made things so much
Yeah.
simpler in a way and so much more unique and so much more fun and made us able to do so many more things. And it was all coming together. And I'm thinking to myself, as it's happening, this is what we should be doing. I mean, and to this day, we still like build planes as we fly them, but this was the ultimate that, you know, because I'm going,
Yes.
we're gonna have
Yes.
Casey, this is a horsey house call. And he was an older gentleman and he said, I want to hear more about this. And he handed me his business card. He said, I'd like to meet you for coffee. And at the time, and still I'm kind of this way. I mean, I will talk to a deaf mute about Camp Casey and see how they can be part of this and help, you know? So in my head, I'm thinking, what? And also, this is way back when I was a little bit more, I don't know, I hadn't been disenchantized by having so many different denial letters from grants and things at this point. So I'm thinking, well, maybe this is our big ticket. Maybe this guy is like Daddy
Yes.
Warbucks and he's just going to make this happen and I don't ever have to waitress again, you know?
Yeah.
So we had the visit. It was amazing. I remember as we're leaving, the girls were like, you can come back anytime and you can bring any horse. It doesn't have to be Sonora, which is so in fact, Lindsay, the older sister, ended up completing an internship with us about 2 years ago, and she's actually a college soccer player now. But
Amazing.
girls are doing great. They're still a very big part of Camp Casey, and as they should be, because they truly were what started the program that has really put us on the map. But a few days later, I reached out to the gentleman for coffee, and I remember I met with him, and I'm probably, you know, I don't know, at the time, 22 or so, 22 or 23. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I mean, I'm just like
Mhm.
faking it. I think I like, you know, went to Forever 21 and I got something that looked kind of professional. And I like, you know, I mean, I just like act. It was like Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion where
Yes.
it's like,
You're fake it till you make it through this meeting.
I like was like, well, I'm having coffee with a businessman, you know? And I do remember that he like grilled me on lots of different questions. And one of the questions was, you know, how much does all of this cost? Because I explained to him, well, the idea is this. And I explained it like I've had this idea for years, even though it was like weeks at this point,
Yeah.
that we need a truck and a trailer and we need the ability to be able to have our own stuff so we don't have to borrow our own truck and our trailer and a
Mhm.
horse. I need to be able to get a horse and we will
Mhm.
start traveling to these children's homes because we're running into this problem and this would be the solution. And he said, well, how much would something like that cost? And I remember saying $50,000. And as it came out of my mouth, I remember thinking like, say $5,000, maybe he'll actually give you a check, you know? But I said,
Right here, right now. Yes.
and it was, I might as well have said 5 million. I mean, it was so much money and it still is a lot of money. But
Yeah.
at the time, you have to understand, we probably had $150 in our bank account from like the last
Yeah.
bake sale we ran, you know, and I owed it
Yeah.
to somebody for like whatever. Like it was like we had no money at all. I mean, didn't know what the hell we were doing, but doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And I remember when I said 50,000 and I didn't like pull it out of nowhere. I remember thinking, well, a truck is going to be at least 20 grand. A trailer is probably another 10. We're going to have to get a horse. Who knows how much that's going to cost? We're going to have to get some
Mhm.
supplies. So I did some mental math, but I also remember immediately thinking like I should have said 5 because it wasn't the response from him that I thought I was getting. I thought he was going to
Yeah.
get out a checkbook and write me a check and I'd be on my way. And
Yeah.
it'd be perfect, but it wasn't. And he said, okay, well, why don't you put some things in writing and I'm going to get them to some friends of mine and I'm going to see what I can do. And then I never heard, I did, of course, I followed up and I put all this Excel spreadsheet together and
Yeah.
tried to make it look good. But I never heard from him again. And it was like, okay, I was thick enough skinned at that point and always really happened that I was just like, what, screw him. Like, whatever. He doesn't know what he's missing. But then, and months went by and I still was just hustling. But at this point I had a lot clearer of a direction. I had a proposal at least written because I had to put it together for this gentleman. I had numbers crunched. So it was nothing, no, I always try to think of that, every bust is a boost kind of thing. It was like, okay, well, that didn't work out, but at least now I have some narrative and some numbers and I can now go to the next sucker who might actually give me some money, but it was like, okay, well, it wasn't going to work out. But a few months later, I remember I was still waitressing and I was between waitress shifts. I remember I had a little bit of a break and I went to our P.O. box. We had a P.O. box at the time so that we could have letterhead and look professional, even though like nothing ever came. It was like junk mail or like thank you cards would come. I will tell you that. And I've kept every single card. So we'd get stuff in our P.O. box and I'm looking through junk mail. I'm sitting in my car. I remember I went to the P.O. box. I sat in my car and there's an unmarked envelope. It had nothing on it. And I opened it up and it was just a single check. And it was in the amount of $50,000.
Oh my
and
God.
I remember freaking out, like going like,
Yeah.
like I have no business having this.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
I have like
Is it real?
no money at all. So $50,000
Yes.
again was just so much money. And it was like, I was shaking. I remember, well, I have to return this because clearly,
clearly.
No business having $50,000. And in the memo, it said anonymous. And I remember, but the return address on the check was this gentleman, And so but I was thinking, okay, well, I have his home address. I will
drive over there,
print out my MapQuest directions to his house, I would drive to his house. I had this whole plan of how I was going to return the money because there was no way I could actually make this happen. And I'm looking at the check and I'm just shaking and I'm just like, I'm just like making sure that it's real, Yeah,
like it's going to burst into flames. Like,
I'm like, this is a joke,
Yeah.
And I'm like late for my waitressing shift that I'm supposed to do. Everything was just a hot mess. So I look at the check though, and I see on the date, it was dated August 26th. And that's Casey's birthday. And I just remember like immediately this like wave of just comfort and just like, I don't know, just relief came over me. And I remember thinking like, this is a gift. This is her. Yeah. This is her doing this. And I ended up not returning the check. I put the check I think I opened a checking account probably at that point.
A real one this time, yes.
Right, exactly. And I ended up purchasing a Ford F-150 and a trailer, and we got a horse donated that we ended up using that whole year, and we hit the ground running. Immediately, that was August. Well, that following June, we started putting everything in motion, and we ended up completing 8 visits that year.
Yeah.
The following year, we completed 15 visits. And the year after that, we completed 20. And now we're up to 30, which is about as many as we can do with Michigan summers. Yes. So that's us going out 2 to 3 times a week from June through September. So
oh my God.
That was in 2007 was when that all got started. So
you're looking at 16 years ago to start. Can I ask you a question about the horses?
Of course.
Because like equine, I feel like so many people don't know a lot about equine therapy, including myself. I've only heard about it a few times. And then when we initially chatted, we talked a little bit about it. But horses seem to have a very, very, because you could do barnyard visits with like pigs and goats and sheep and chickens or whatever, but you're focusing on horses.
Yes.
What is it about a horse as an animal and its properties and connection and all of those things that make them such an amazing animal for connection with a sick child or human, just in general?
Yeah, I think it's just humans in general. I think that we have just this intrinsic, like, just fascination with the animals that are so grand and large and cumbersome. And I mean, a horse is very powerful, yet it's so calming and it's so
Mhm.
docile, and they trust you and allow you
Mhm.
to trust it. And I mean, I don't know that there's ever somebody who can see a horse and not like just smile and be like, "Oh, a horse." I mean, still, I'm 40 years old, and when I'm on the highway and I see a horse, I go, "Horse, look, horses." You know, it's
Yeah,
just
we always do. Yes.
right.
Horsey, horsey, always.
Is. I mean,
Yes.
horses are just such this beautiful, magnificent creature that is just so large but so calming and sweet. And
Mhm.
um particularly horses, though, their hearts will sync up to ours, and they're prey animals, so they need to go from like 0 to 100 very quickly. But
Mhm.
when they are in their resting phase, their hearts are slow and ours sync
Mhm.
up to them. And in
Mm.
fact, breath will sync up to them. We had a visit this past Sunday with a little boy. He was a leukemia patient. He also happens to have Down syndrome.
Mm.
And
Oh
I don't
gosh.
know exactly what ailment it's from. I would not think it's from the leukemia, but he had a trach. So he had
Yeah. Yeah.
an opening in his throat.
Yeah.
And when he would breathe on the ground, you could hear it. It was very like mucusy, and you could hear it. And it was something that his
Yeah.
mom told us that we needed to be aware of, and that we made our volunteers aware of. Well, when he was up on that horse, and I shit you not, absolutely happened, that sound went away. His breath synced up to the horse's breath. And his mom was just in tears, going, "I
Oh.
haven't heard my son breathe like this. I've
Oh
never
my
heard my
god.
son breathe like this." Because
Oh,
he's
this is like
not an animal.
oh,
We serve
yes.
children who, I mean, having experience with brain cancer, we serve a lot of brain cancer patients. And sometimes they lose their mobility. They lose their sometimes they become unable to walk. When they're on a horse, they're tall and they're walking. They have that sensation that they're walking. Their hips are being stretched. Um, they have the sense of power and control during a time when all of the control and all of the power in their lives have been just stripped of them, and they are able
Yes.
to steer this animal and conquer this fear. You know, they many times, I mean, of course, lots of times the reaction is just like Kelly and Lindsay's, "Ah, oh my god, a horse is at the door." But there are
Yes.
many times where the kids are a little bit nervous. They don't
Sure.
trust adults, and they see a bunch of adults at their door, and they
Yeah.
see this horse and they're a little confused. I mean, any surprise can be a little bit
Of
confusing.
course.
And sometimes they are fearful, rightfully so, because these are 1,200-pound animals that we're asking them
Sure.
to chop on top of. So we
Especially
know
if they have like overstimulation issues, right?
that,
Like, or they're just like, are you going to poke me? You're going to prod me, or like they can only handle attention for like 10 minutes
right.
and that's
And
it.
so
You know, I
we're
can
on
see that.
all
Sure.
of those things, and our staff is just so incredibly trained and just very good at what they do. Our equine team. I mean, all of our staff is great, but our equine team are just like, they just know what to do and say and how
Yeah.
to make that child feel comfortable and not ever pressured. But when that same fearful child who's going through so much loss of control in her life now is able to conquer the fear of getting on this horse, it's
Yeah.
empowering. It's like, it's the first time probably in a long time that that child has felt that they have control over something, and that they are powerful and they're tall, and they're getting attention too, in a way that they're in a positive way, because everybody's,
Yes.
"Oh my gosh, a horse is going up and down the street," not,
Yes.
"Look at that child, she's bald," or
Yes.
"Is that
Yes.
contagious," or "Oh, I don't understand that, so I'm afraid of it," you know, which is
Right.
oftentimes what kids or just humans in general will do. So the healing element to what we do has to do with healing that gap between feeling like you're at a loss of control, you're at a loss, you have
Mhm.
no confidence, you don't even can't even look the way you want to look. And
Yeah.
now you're on this powerful animal, really feeling like you've gained control again. And I think that that is
Yeah.
something so powerful about horses. But I also think that our horses really know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, when our children are in wheelchairs, we'll notice that the horse's head will immediately drop into the child's lap. I have countless videos of this. I have photos
Oh
of
my
this.
God.
These are things that I would not believe if I was not there witnessing it myself. But that horse will, we served, I mean, I have so many stories, but there was this little boy that we served who was in hospice care. He was actually staying at the Ronald McDonald House at the time.
Mhm.
And we brought the horse right to the Ronald McDonald House, and he was so sick. He could not even get out of his wheelchair.
Yeah.
But we just brought the horse there for the family and for him, and it was an amazing day for everybody. And he was just days away of passing, and hit the
Yeah.
horse lowered his head, and he just sat it in his lap, and he just breathed. When horses breathe, it's very
Yes. Yes.
very dramatic. They just push out lots of hot air. And he was
Yes.
doing it over and over again. He was pushing out this hot air. And this little boy who couldn't speak and he couldn't really move just sat there. And you could tell that there was this connection between them. Every single person that was there, including me. I mean, I know I told you it's not sad. It wasn't sad. It was beautiful, but we were
Yes.
just sobbing because
Yes.
seeing this connection that he had with this animal and what it was doing for him. I mean, words were not necessary. We could see it,
Yes.
witness
Yes.
it. And in a way, it was almost like the horse was getting that too. It was like the
Yes.
horse, and I've witnessed that not only in that situation, but in others where the horse will lower himself and act in a way that only a horse that understood the,
Like the
severity
gravity of this.
child
This is
was
a
going
6 mile.
through would behave. So
Yes.
it's very powerful. And I love so much that there is equine therapy. Now, Camp Casey is very unique in the way that we're emotionally therapeutic, but we,
Mhm.
there is a whole industry of therapeutic horseback riding, which is
Yeah.
oftentimes used for children and adults alike who are seeking assistance for all sorts of ailments, mental,
Mhm.
physical, emotional, behavioral. So we are kind of cousins to that, but in
Okay.
many ways, we are very much so providing a therapeutic service.
What do the parents say to you? Because I mean, again, like seeing their child sick, which is I genuinely cannot even imagine, and I've been through a lot. What do they say to you about this? Because they feel isolated, they feel out of
Yeah,
control. They're so stressed. They've lost friends and family and community members who are freaked out or feel like this is contagious or nervous or that isolated in the neighborhood. Neighbors don't want to like make eye contact, whatever. Like, what are
yeah,
their feedback?
you are hitting the nail on the head right there. So that is something that might surprise people is that um, you look at a family who's going through hardship, and right away, I think people do come out of the woodwork and they do help them and want to bring a meal train their way. And when the diagnosis is there, but cancer treatment is something that I mean, even once they even get the no evidence of disease, report, and they are maybe out of the woods, they're not really. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always going to be that anxiety. There's always that fear of when is it coming back? They always have to be
Yeah.
going in and getting scans. And until they get the clearance and ring the bell, it's a years long battle, and it's for
Yeah.
everybody, and it's very hard. And it's something where there's such a paradox because it's during the time where they need the most support, they're getting the least amount of support from their community,
Exactly.
and their family and their friends and the folks that maybe were there at the very beginning. Well, things got hard or things got uncertain, and I think we take for granted, myself, somebody who does not have to experience this hardship in my life, when I take out the trash and I see my neighbor also taking out the trash on Wednesday nights, we say,
Yeah.
hey, how's it going? Oh, good. Another day.
Yeah.
Bye. And we leave. Well, the families that we serve, their neighbors retreat when they see them taking out the trash because they don't want to ask how things are going because they might not know how to answer or
Yes.
respond to the answer that they're given. They don't
Yes.
know what to say. Asking a cancer mom how they're doing is a lot different than asking, the mom at PTA how you're doing. So
Exactly. Yes.
what we hear a lot from the parents is, thank you, of course, for providing the service to my child who feels like the most popular kid on the block during times where that child feels so isolated and alone and pointed at and, stands out for the worst reasons,
Yeah.
making my child stand out for the best reason. There's a horse here. And that's
Exactly.
be their friend. The kids who are being jerks on the school bus now are like coming out and wanting to actually participate on the day. But
Yeah.
they're also thanking us for bringing such attention to their household. I mean, we don't come in quietly. We have this giant trailer that's like very graphically painted with all sorts of words that say that we're helping kids with cancer. And there's no surprises or secrets about what we are doing when you're a neighbor to the child that we're serving. So And we invite the whole community to be a part of this. We want the neighbors to come out. We want them to eat a slice of pizza. We bring pizza for 30 people and it all gets eaten because everybody on the block comes on out. It's a block party essentially. And
Of
the
course.
idea is to do that. It's to bring together the community so that now they can talk about this uncomfortable subject and they can feel
Yes.
they can give that family the support that they need during the time that they really do need it the most. So that is probably what we hear the most from the family is just enormous gratitude. And, or we'll hear like, this is the first time that our family has eaten anything in
Yeah.
weeks. This is the first time we've seen our child smile. This is the first time we've seen our child trust. This is the first time we've seen our child, interact with other kids since his diagnosis. So
Yeah.
that's something that it's so much more than just like the horse and just the, I mean,
Yes.
if you are driving by and you don't know the family, you don't know what they're going through, it looks like we're just putting on a pony party, but there's just so many more layers to it than that. And it's a very, very powerful experience for everybody that's involved. Those who are giving it, who are receiving it, and those who are witnessing it.
The way that you just described the parents' experience and the community experience and the isolation, like I can completely relate in every possible way. And again, like cannot imagine having a sick child like that. So just the impact of what you guys are doing it's beyond, it's ridiculous. But you were telling me before that you're looking to expand in a pilot program beyond just horsey house visits. And I know you have three other ways, but talk about what's next for Camp Casey.
Like you're mentioning, the aspect of the community coming together and us being able to really highlight the, I don't know, the bravery and celebrate the child has been something that's really organically fallen into place with the Horsey House Call visits. I mean, it started as, if we're going to get way back there, it started as something we wanted
Mhm.
to do to honor Casey. Then it morphed into something that we should bring to families to make life a little bit lighter for them and bring them a little bit of
Mhm.
sunshine during a dark time. But with that, so many other layers started coming into play, one of which was the effects that it had
Mhm.
on the entire community. Something that we hear and see all the time is that these children are feeling isolated, they're feeling misunderstood, they're feeling very alone. I mean, the whole family feels this way. The mom and dad feel this way among their social circles, so you can only imagine what the
Mhm.
children are feeling and how alone they are. We had one Horsey house call visit. I remember it so well, where the mom wanted us to come, and we always tailor it to we'll come whatever daytime place you want us to be. We'll be there at that daytime and place. She wanted us to come at like 3:36 on a Thursday. And we're like, that's odd. And she wanted us to meet at this exact spot and whatever. And finally, we like kind of dug into this a little bit more and realized the reason she wanted us to come at this specific time on this specific day was because there were kids on the bus that were bullying her son. Her son had
Oh,
lost his hair, his face had bloated, he had a speech delay. There were some ramifications of the treatment he was going through that were evident physically. And he was in fourth or fifth grade, and
yeah.
children are cruel and they don't understand what's going on and they fear what they don't understand. So they can say things that are just very off color. And so she wanted us to show these little brats like how
Yes.
brave this boy is. And she really had it all mapped out. And we did it. We brought the horse right to the bus stop and he got off the bus and these other kids had to keep going. And, it was awesome, that that kind of experience
Mhm.
happens all of the time. And because of the feedback that we're hearing and because of what we're witnessing and evaluating, and we're always trying to get better and stronger and
Mhm.
safer and more fun always. I mean, we're never done doing what we do. We want to always aspire to be more and better and reach more families. um, During one of our evaluations, we always evaluate the entire program at the end of our season, which
Mhm.
takes place in the fall. And then enter into winter, which you don't have the luxury of
Not
experiencing.
in LA. It just rained here for 6 months, but it's not a Michigan winter. It's very different.
Michigan
Yeah.
winters are brutal, and we are indoors. And unfortunately, we cannot operate the
Mhm.
Horsey House Call program year round, even though we wish we could, because
Yes.
cancer happens year round. And again, there are some children that would really benefit from our services in February who might
Yes.
not be around in June. So, with that being an obstacle that we've tried to overcome, And then the other information that we have gathered throughout the years of how effective our programming is, particularly the Horsey House Call program is for kids who are feeling isolated and alone. We have decided to pilot a new program that we are going to be launching this fall. We are so excited about it. Right now, we're calling it the Compassion Project, although I'm really liking some of the other names that have been thrown out because it's still up in the air. We have not totally branded this program yet, and we're hoping that we can get it funded. It's yet to be funded, but we're using our unrestricted funds right now. And the new program, the mission is truly to spread awareness and eradicate the stigma that can oftentimes accompany childhood illness. So we will be identifying children that we've served with the Horsey House Call program who are interested in this via survey and asking if we can go into their school, and where we will bring a horse right into their school. And but before we do that, before we surprise the children with a horse, we're also working with another nonprofit organization that is providing a social worker for us to present an age appropriate presentation about childhood illness, whatever that illness is that child is going through. So if it's ALL, if it's a leukemia, that social worker will come equipped with a very age appropriate presentation about leukemia, what it is, what it isn't, how you can help, what they might notice, and offer the children an opportunity to share what they want to share about their experiences going through this hardship, to take questions from their classmates, and to really bring attention to this in a setting where they can feel supported and comfortable to ask and answer the questions that they might have about this illness. It just takes that elephant right out of the room. We also want to encourage service. So while we have 20 students here, we also want to, so we're going to be teaching them a little bit about compassion, about kindness, about empathy. But then more than that, we want to also show them how they can be a part of giving back and how good that feels. So we're also teaming up with another nonprofit. It's called Fleece and Thank You. They make these fleece blankets, and we'll be participating in a service project where we'll make these fleece blankets that then go back to the hospital, and will be blankets that children will then have who are going through treatment. And then, of course, icing on the cake is that they come into the gym or the playground if the weather permits, or wherever we can deem safe, and there will be a therapy horse there ready to give everybody
incredible
rides. So that is the program that we are so excited about. We're hoping it takes off. It does require some fine tuning, which is what we'll be doing this year, and of course some funding, which is what we'll be going after this year. But I'm confident that we'll be able to really make this program into something that we can operate during the winter months. When our Horsey House Call program, is
what are you going to do when this becomes nationwide? Like, this is so needed everywhere, Molly. My gosh.
I'm very proud of Camp Casey's growth and where it is, but I also feel as though I want to take it where I can and then allow it to keep growing on its own. But I do think that it definitely has the potential to get there. I hope it does. I mean, my all-time dream is and my goal truly is to make it so that Camp Casey lives on without me. And, so its legacy lives long beyond my own. And we're getting there. I'm very excited about where the organization is right now, but in terms of it continuing to grow, I'm excited to see that happen. I don't know that I'm going to be the one to lead that brigade, though. Who knows? We'll see.
So you're going to go where the energy takes you, and it's taken you this far 19 years later. Congratulations on everything. This is one of the most extraordinary programs I've ever heard of. I honestly would love to do some equine therapy like myself for PTSD, just of the cancer experience that continues to pop up. I've just heard it's beyond. So that's why I was so excited to talk to you. And you're doing such an amazing, amazing service. If people wanted to get in touch with you, where can they find you or Camp Casey? What's the best way?
So, of course, we're all over the place on social media. I believe we're Camp Casey MI for Michigan on Facebook and, on Instagram. On Facebook, I think we're just Facebook / Camp Casey. if you want to go to our website, if you're old school, if you're, 40 years old like me or older and still use websites. My younger team is telling me that nobody
It's
uses
like an
websites
app.
anymore,
Yes.
but it's dash. Yeah, I'm like, well, I think you can get to it on your phone too, but it's camp-casey.org. Camp-Casey. Can't forget that hyphen, camp-casey.org. You can always reach me. I'm Molly at camp-casey.org. But yeah, visit our website, go on our Facebook page, see what we're doing on Instagram. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's such a visual program. It's funny because all of our campers look like they're like stock photography because they're all like, we've never had an ugly camper ever in 18 years. Like there's never been a child who isn't adorable and photogenic and having so much fun. So, it's really fun. It's really whenever I'm kind of feeling down or I need to recharge my battery, first and foremost, I'll try to get my butt to a horsey house call because there's such a wonderful thing to be a part of. But I love just even cruising through the photos because there's such beautiful, happy memories that we have. So I definitely encourage you all to go check out our Instagram page.
You're bringing more joy to people than some people bring to others in their entire lives, and you're doing it one afternoon. Oh. It's unbelievable.
Well, think that, and I just want to say this before we end, is that I get a lot of credit for this organization, and I do, I'm proud of myself because I was tenacious and I didn't say, I could have stopped many times or thrown my hands up. I mean, it's not always so much fun. There's so much, there's just a lot of, just soul sucking, and getting denied over and over because there's so many worthy charities out there, and there's only so much money out there. So we do get our fair share of denial letters from every time we submit a grant. But so I stayed with it. I really stayed strong and figured things out, and I'm going to give myself that credit. But I will tell you that at this point where we are in the organization, it is such a family. It is such a team. We rely on so much collaboration that I sit here and I'm able to say thank you to such a compliment because I do believe that I bring joy, but I am like very much a cog in the machine at this point. And my team that I work with are just tremendous young women who are, they could be getting paid so much more money at such bigger organizations or bigger corporations. And they choose to stick with me and to see this dream out and be a part of this grassroots nonprofit. And I'm just, every day I look around the conference table at the young women I work with and I think like, wow, like we have some, like it gives me hope because there's so many wonderful, wonderful people out there who truly care about making a difference. And I'm just, it's such an honor to be able to be doing this work. I feel grateful every single day.
Like it literally like exudes out of you. It exudes out of you. And it's so amazing. You're meant to do this. Like you were put on this earth to do this.
I will tell you, if I'm anything, I'm definitely passionate.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Molly. Truly, like Camp Casey's incredible. You're incredible.
Well, thank you for telling your story, for giving me a platform here to share. And I really wish you the very best with what you're going through. And I just want you to know that, there's programs like Camp Casey that are here for you. If you ever find yourself in Michigan, you call me up.
Oh my God, I love it. Done. So good. All right. Thank you. Take care. Well, that's it. Another episode of What Nobody Tells Us. I hope you learned something. I hope you felt something, and I hope you feel empowered to go start a conversation with somebody who you know might be going through something that you don't understand. Lean in, don't peace out. Thanks so much for spending some of your day with me today. I really, really love that you did that. If you want to reach out, if you got an idea for an episode, you just want to give me some feedback or just say, hey, do so at Nobody Tells Us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it these days. No one knows. Reach out, Christy at nobodytellsus.com. Shoot me an email there or visit my website, www.nobodytellsus.com. Until next time, see you later.